Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome in to Object Catchup. This is where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they're new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, we are going to be doing a couple of the absolutely ancient requests, a couple of, I don't know, to be honest, it's looking bad on that front. But however, before we gotta do that, there is a new Inanimate Insanity remaster. They are coming out like hotcakes over here, 3 in the past month. Isn't that crazy? In the past 30 days, we have gotten like 3 of them released after there was like 4 months without them. So we are absolutely churning them out, and episode 9 as remaster, I believe, yeah, it's the longest remastered episode of Anime Insanity Season 1, standing at 12 minutes. It is a remake of episode 9, which was titled The Snowdown, and at the time, I think was also the longest episode of Anime Insanity at that time. So it's interesting to see what's going on. Yet again, as a reminder, I do not remember Inanimate Insanity Season 1, so I'm going to be watching this and opinionating entirely as a perspective outside of comparison. We're not taking the comparison of Season 1 original too much into account because I don't remember it. I watched it like 10 years ago, however, no, it was like 8 years ago. However, I don't really remember it. So, we're gonna go here with our best, and we're just gonna watch it neutrally as if it was a new episode. Here we go. Okay, so that is episode 9 remastered of Inanimate Insanity Season 1. We have ourselves a relatively large episode in terms of scale, because it's the type of episode where, like, right, ended up starting, to do shit around this time, right? Like, it is a commonly known thing with Inanimate Insanity Season 1, where people are like, yo, this is not that interesting, and then bow happens, right? And then that proceeds to be kind of interesting, and things proceed to happen, right, from there. And you can really sense it into this, in this episode, because you can tell by the things that happen in this episode that, like, you see that the source material that is pulling from is directly a little bit more daring, right? Like, it's a little bit more, okay, this is doing a couple of unorthodox things, like testing out claymation, right, or like stop motion, and then trying out a song at the end, right? That's very fun to see it get remade, and all that stuff with some character dropping in and stuff, right? And like the fact that the show, it like started to, properly, have these additional like things that it was trying, but it wasn't quite able to perform, means that when you have an episode that, ends up, remade, right? And you have a remake like this with an episode that was ambitious, these are the best, right? Like, the best remastered episodes tend to be the ambitious reenactments of prior episodes, right? So, I gotta say that I definitely think that this was probably up there with my favorite remastered episodes, for sure, because it did everything relatively smart, in terms of the actual plot line of the episode. What is the plot line of the episode? Apple gets told that Santa isn't real by Paintbrush and Marshmallow, which have to now work to get Apple out because they've just become ultra sad, thinking that life is meaningless. They don't have to act good anymore because the Santa isn't real anyways, right? And all that jazz. So they end up doing that. In the meantime, we have our eliminated contestant to be Lightbulb, who gets eliminated. Again, always difficult to really clock why from the remastered episodes. However, Lightbulb was already seemingly not one of the fan favorites. from the prior set of votings. So yeah, 2011 moment. But by one vote, Lightbulb ends up getting eliminated. They drop down and like die for a little bit, and then we have ourselves a challenge. Of course, the environment is snowy because it was, of course, a Christmassy themed episode. In terms of how the snowy environment looks here, very simplistic, very simplistic, right? There's not too much detail on the snow itself. It's just a blanket, right? Which at the end of the day is a thing that, you know, this season 1 remaster tries to do. It tries to overall act itself out simplistic, and it, you know, manages to do that with stuff like the snow, where, you know, by just having the blanket there, it ends up doing itself relatively solidly. So yeah, we end up seeing, however, at the 3-minute mark, the official appearance of Bo. Yes, Bo, the hit character. We have not seen Bo with a body of technically for like a million years, right? Because of course Bo is a ghost, and season 3 Bo is actually bought, right? So that means that this Bo, it's been a long time no see, I must admit. It's a very rounded. I feel like it's more rounded than I remembered Bo being rounded. You know, like because I mean, of course, in the original Bo asset is like very sharp, right? Which means that like there's a massive roundness to it, but like the original asset is very sharp, you know, like it's proper like triangular, right? But like yeah, we get to see the advertisement for the chair, even get to see some epic dancing. It will make you be super cool. So let's go. Shout out to the chair, but then that opens up apparently the topic of the episode, which is commercialism, right? Because commercials are nostalgic and stuff or something. Taco remains doing taco things of being mildly normal and mildly smart. Is kind of debatable. And you can tell the mask is slipping. Okay, OJ proceeds to have some running around with Saul. It ends up being synced to the music. I wonder if it's a sync to the music in the original. I mean, probably, right? That was where they would get the gag from, because like, you know, it's the main idea. Then Marsh and Paintbrush end up going over, dressing up as Santa and going over to Apple, which believes them 100%. By the way, Apple is very easy trust, you know. But yeah, they proceed to, you know, try to have a pony or whatever. No, they want the wish or something. They want to sit on the lap, and then as they want to sit on the lap, they then have the wish and be like, I want an iPhone 7, and then yeah, which is I mean, it's intriguing. For sure. It does make me wonder, you know, why Apple was never doubting it all those years. Did Santa actually come by in the other years? Like, what happened? But, yeah. Then we proceed to have OJ and Salt that do a little song. Well, not a song in that. They do like a, you know, gag where OJ's just talking about ice skating, but Salt thinks they're talking about a relationship or whatever. Interesting enough. So, as far as I'm aware, the thumbnail is a scene in the original episode, though. Isn't it? Hold on. Should I check this just in case? Because the thumbnail, because I think I heard about it. The thumbnail, right, is Salt holding up a mistletoe very aggressively over OJ, and then obviously that's the idea, right? However, I don't remember if this is a scene in the original episode. I feel like this is important enough to where I should check it. Like, did we actually bail on this scene? Because I feel like it's kind of interesting if we did. I feel like where would it possibly be, bro? I have no idea. Where would this have possibly been in the episode? I don't know. Okay, yeah, I don't really know. Oh, it is a scene, yeah. I'm not 100% sure, yeah, but it gets cut from the episode. But despite the fact that it gets cut from the episode, it doesn't get cut from the thumbnail, which is That is interesting. That is interesting. I feel like, is that like a bit misleading? I don't know. You know, I'm not decided on that. It's a bit misleading to put something that was in the episode in the remaster, but then it's not part of the episode. It's part of the thumbnail only. I feel it's a bit suspicious. But I understand why they wouldn't want to make the gag. I just find it interesting how it's the thumbnail. But okay, yeah, sure. Anyways, yeah, they proceed to have them finding the tree, but then Pickle actually goes, "I know it's not a big tree; it's a small, little, tiny tree." Because you know the tiny tree is showing, you know, you gotta stick to your roots. Right? You gotta like be, you don't want to be how like the rest of them. You need to be on yourself, and you need to go against the odds or something. Anyways, Apple gets that again because you know, Santa wasn't real. They eventually discovered because, you know, Marshmallow and Paintbrush could not successfully deliver the gift to Marshmallow. They cannot successfully let them do the wish. The tree gets officially done. In the meantime, Paintbrush proceeds to buy a tree online from Walmart. They buy like an aluminum tree. I feel you couldn't need it to be an aluminum tree. You could have bought a fake tree or something. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what Paintbrush was doing here. I mean, like, it's a big question. You still have the tag on it. Come on, at least remove the tag. Everybody knows that that's the one thing you gotta do. Come on, Paintbrush from 2011. What are we doing out here? Paintbrush from 2011 was an interesting character. I have to admit. Paintbrush, like, in these remastered episodes is really intriguing because they are very much so more of a, like, they're more goofy than they are like in modern time. Absolutely, you know, I feel, or it's just, I don't know, it's really hard to describe Paintbrush in these episodes. They feel more goofy in the remasters than they do right now by like a considerable margin. I think it's just because they don't get their anger shown off that much, right? So yeah, but like, even then, they like, it still does, but in general they feel more happy. All right, so that's like interesting. Even though they still have mild temper tantrums. Anyways, the Linny tree does actually end up working. Pickle's strategy ended up being massively successful, so that's good stuff. And they proceed to be safe. And as a reward, they get to pick an eliminated contestant to come back and join their team. Can they decide? No, because apparently they only had 2 seconds to make the decision, and it didn't work. So that means that we have the viewers to vote. We end up having all of them form their little information. You know, they have the little gags. With it, it's interesting to see such a classic style rejoin. Like, I don't know, rejoins don't get made like these anymore. You know, like, ever, like, even then, the BFD, I'm pretty sure the BFDI debut, I don't, like, it's just ever since, you know, there's so much, like, with rejoins and with debuts, which is technically both, right? Because of both, it ends up that, like, it's so rare to see one where the contestants get to all have a gag, right? Because the way that the BFDI style debut showing always ends up making stuff, and then the rejoins constantly, you know, tend to use it like that as well. It ends up being, it's a very fast-paced endeavor that it does, which means that the characters, a lot of them don't get a gag, right? They get this kind of standard, just say a one-liner, or the gag super quickly and cuts itself off, right? But having a situation here where, like, every character has a humorous bit in their sort of, like, explanation for why they should rejoin, I think it's interesting, and it's kind of different how most people do it. I think it'd be better, personally, right? Because, like, while the BFDI debut is very, very iconic in the way that it works, right? Yeah, sure, it is absolutely iconic. It doesn't give that much information on the characters, right? And it would realistically probably be better, especially for rejoins, but even maybe for debuts, if they had a little bit more time to give off the conversation. Especially since, like, usually that type of stuff is at the end of episodes anyways. And, you know, the information from the episode doesn't matter, like, you know, for a rejoin or a debut. So that means that the character's only moment to convey to you is that one. And again, it's at the end of the episode, so pacing doesn't really matter that much. So I would personally recommend doing more style rejoins or debuts like this if we're making a show, because I personally think that it is a better way. But yeah, I don't. Does Bo join? Oh god, Bo shows up a couple of times because of the ads, right? But I don't think Bo joins, right? I think Paper joins or something. But either way, we end up having Santa Claus ending up actually existing, by the way. Hi, Santa Claus. Then you proceed to have Apple try to tell them, yo, where's the pony? And they proceed to just run away. Fair enough. And then we proceed to have the ending credits with the song. Yes, the song. II Season 1 had music. It's very actually easy to forget. And in fact, I forgot. I'm going to be 100% for real. Yes, the Island of Misfit Objects. A little musical track sung by the, characters that were up for a rejoin, which is fun. They end up bantering quite a lot. With the renewed version, there is a little bit of a wondering about how II is gonna do songs, right, for the future ahead, because II has had this little bit of a reputation with doing music now, because it's sorted itself out ever since the comeback era, that it's sort of had very intense musical numbers, right? Tacos to Raid, Karma Waits, II, right? Like the way that season 2 ended was very important on the music, right? And then Welcome to the OC made it think that may be thing, but then season 4 has had musical numbers since. So what's going on with that, right? This doesn't really answer those questions. However, despite the fact that it doesn't answer those questions, it still pulls through by saying, hey, we can still do them. So, fair enough. Good to know that they can still do what they usually do. But yeah. That is episode 9. As far as remastered episodes, I think is one of my favorite, because it's one of the most, substantial ones in terms of amount of different things that happen, which is thanks to the source material just starting to become a little bit more advanced as well. And in general, there's less, confusion. I think it manages to play itself off pretty cleanly, especially as the last batch of episodes had a couple of, so-so moments that it was doing. Sugar Rush was very complained about for Salt and Pepper and all that stuff, and episode 8 I think was also complained about for a thing or another. So in general, it's sort of it's returning itself a little bit to baseline level, and I think baseline level returns it pretty well. And so yeah, if I find time, I might try to sing the Island of Misfit Objects right now. However, no promises. Let's see if the next session is an introduction or it's a song. We'll find out. We're on the island of misfit objects. Here we don't want to stay. We want to compete in challenges for $1 million payday. A cage full of objects means a cage full of rejects that are messed up something that are forever our reject. When Christmas Day just near, we'll all still be trapped in here. Objects galore, so alone, so bored. They keep sending more, and it's all because of me from 4. How would you like to be a paper that got torn apart? Or a baseball that struck out? Or a nickel so worthless people don't even know how to spell his name? We're all misfits. How would you like to be a knife that wasn't sharp enough? Or a balloon that pops away too easily? Or a pepper shaker that shook at the game too much? Or a light bulb that wasn't bright enough? We're all misfits, all misfits. Who said you could be in this song? You're not even singing, just let it happen. If we're in isolation with mental imbalance, we'll miss all the fun that can come with a challenge. When Christmas Day just near, we'll all still be trapped in here. Unless you make me. Alright, and now it's time for the request pile. If you're curious, the request pile is Rotten Corpse. I hope you enjoyed the cover. I think I put it in the video. If not, it's also in its own video, which I uploaded yesterday. So, we are going to be going over into BFBL. Now, I don't know what BFBL stands for. However, it's a series started over a year ago. Its latest episode being 6 months ago. Created by cawfeeshop, who is Wiver, has 118 subscribers on their channel. And yeah, this is Object Show. Let's see it. It's got 3 episodes. They procedurally get longer. And it starts off at episode 1, which is titled Stay on the Cake, with 3 exclamation marks. We're very excited about this. Here we go. Okay, that is episode 1 of BFBL, which we now have discovered stands for Battle for Birthday Land. Alright, and you know what? I'm relatively satisfied by this episode. So, this episode is intriguing because it shows off that you can have a relatively good, by just focusing in on the absolute fundamental of the fundamentals, you can make a relatively solid little episode. And this show, for as much as it's flip-a-clip animated, right, and all that jazz, it does utilize everything that allows the fundamentals to at least exist, right? Like, it's rough around the edges, but it does properly, but it focuses in on doing lip syncing. The assets are regular BFDI assets, but that's what we've got to work with. Instead of trying to make assets and it turns out bad, use what is available. Fair enough. Same thing goes for the environment. Take advantage of an environment where you don't necessarily have to draw it, right? Like, take advantage of other things, which makes sense, And then with audio is also relatively nice here. We have a focus in on a strong microphone that you can hear stuff relatively clearly. The music, it's all relatively kind of Kevin MacLeody. However, it's quieter. So sometimes when the microphone's quieter, it does the thing. But you see, it does the fundamentals relatively well. So I'm relatively satisfied by this episode because you can tell that it locked itself in. However, here's the deal. You can tell that, however, by underlining this focus, right, on having a fundamental of a fundamental laid down, right, where it's proper, like this is going to work. It does manages to have that. However, it has that at the expense of originality, right? Like, for as much as this is very solid, it's very much so not trying basically anything new, right? So the premise of this show is being hosted by Birthday Speaker Box. Why? Because, which is a fiery speaker box asset, by the way. But basically, they proceeded to have Birthday Land, which is apparently a square mile where every day is your birthday, which is pretty crazy. Now, we're not going to go into the implication about what it would mean for every day to be your birthday, because technically, wouldn't that mean that you would age 1 year every day that you were on there? However, I think we get what we mean, right? So yeah, there's video games, robot servants, video games, Chuck E. Cheese, video games, and even more stuff. So our fellas are fighting for it. We end up having our challenge, which is stand on top of the giant birthday cake for as long as possible. The contestants proceed to do that. And it's a balance beam challenge in disguise. The characters proceed to have initial interactions. You can see them immediately form alliances out loud. There's no secrecy going on here. We end up having a character like Beam, which apparently isn't get liked. There's B.F.B, which I will say I actually really like the concept with the fact that everybody has BFDI asses and there's B.F.B with B.F.B asses. People think they look weird. I actually like that quite a bit. We have got ourselves the Notebook fella, which seems to be super open to everything, while everybody else is kind of more exclusive, like kind of shuns people away. This Notebook is trying to see the best in people. So alright, I'm interested in this textbook. Then we end up having the fan ball that proceeds to be like a fan. That's like their character trait. They're like a fan of, they either a fan or not a fan, but they will make sure to say whether they're a fan or not a fan of things. Okay, for a minute I thought they were just a fan of everything, but no, they can be not fans of things either. We have the 1x1 Lego piece, which is massive. I don't know why this I don't know why this character has this enormous. That would be the smallest thing here. Oh, Periwinkle, who's kind of the dumb oblivious character. Play-Doh, which we don't get to see much of. Soundboardy, which is the only one that I don't think is voice acted like in the sense where they're using the text to speech. The 1x1 Lego piece is mildly mean. And then at the end of it, we end up having ourselves at the end of the balance beam, we end up having... Oh, yeah, there's also Air, which it's an interesting character. How does Air work? They seem to be able to move around the air relatively freely. However, they're sort of, I guess, attached to the air molecules that their face is at for the meanwhile, which means that, for example, if there is high wind, I guess, or if they get, like, freaking blown or, like, you know, sucked up, then that means that... they will go along with it. So yeah, Air being a little bit cocky, you know, standing to the side, standing very close to people, and if you know this weakness, you should just stand way high, right? That way nobody can really catch you. But they proceed to not do that. And then eventually BFB ends up winning because of their alliance with Ball, and Soundboardy there at the very end manages to clutch up a super long stretch, maybe because they're a robot, I don't know, and get the ball out of there. So BFB and a Soundboard end up getting there. But overall, as you can tell, very generic in terms of functionality. No, we've got a show that's like, it's got BFDI level personalities, it's got BFDI level, you know, literal setting, it's got BFDI assets, it's got BFDI everything, but it's still relatively solid to watch. So this is what happens when you take a show, you sacrifice creative vision, and you just go for the fundamentals. You have a relatively easy to watch, kind of nice episode. However, it kind of leaves you wondering, yo, there was nothing special to it though. So yeah, episode 2, going through hard times. Okay, that is BFBL 2, going through hard times. Yeah, it's an interesting little episode. It follows the same characteristics as the first. You will notice that, like, it is a bit more creative, because, like, it's just kind of in the nature of BFDI and the BFDI-esque formula that you'll notice that it gets more open as episodes progress to sort of do bullshit, right? Like, it starts to sort of free, like, you know, open its wings a little bit. And as time passes, you see that, like, this show also starts to do a little bit more. So it did feel like a bit of a more creative episode as it goes. As time progresses in a BFDI original S show, you end up having that additional time to get stuff in there done. Just to clarify what happens in this episode, we end up having some fellas. There are a couple of redesigns. BFB gets redesigned. Now 4 and X don't appear on this emblem anymore, making it just a white circle. It's a bit weird. I understand why the decision gets made, because of course the idea is it's weird when a face is over a face, right? So I get the concept. I would have maybe, like, had some higher coloring of it, or, like, removed, or, like, kept the outline of 4X and, like, moved the face or something, because having just a white circle is a bit weird. But yeah, we end up having a birthday speaker box, which has apparently had mouth surgery and now has a mouth. Yeah, I mean, we saw how it was kind of struggling in episode 1 to pull off that, like, you know, speaker box, like, booming effect, right? When the speaker box is talking. We saw that it was kind of struggling to make that work, so it just decided to not do it at all and revert back to mouth mode. So, you know what? Fair enough. Then we proceed to have the team forming. Bean gets called out for wanting to have people show their, you know, for wanting to watch him count his money. We have teams time. Yes, we need a jingle for forming teams, because that'll happen a lot of times. And then we end up having the rules. Each team needs to have 5 contestants. And then we have ourselves the teams. So let's see what exactly were the teams as we sort them out. So we have team BFB, which is titled Team BFB, which stands for best flipping buddies, right? their team best flipping buddies, which is Periwinkle, the Textbook, the B.F.B, the Fanball, sorry, and then the Play-Doh. So what I think of this team, looking at this team right now, it's looking like a pretty solid team foundation. Yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty solid. Periwinkle here, and Play-Doh can probably come in with a little bit more unorthodox ideas while still having that power. And then there's like this trio, they've got some friendship vibes. They've got a bit of logic to them. I think Notebook has some logic to them, right? Fanboy is sort of more active, and BFB is relatively good physically. I think that this team is solidly put together. I think that this team has good chances. I'm not gonna lie. So I think this team will do well. And then we have Bruh. So, okay, I'm not gonna lie, I really, really liked the gag of the team name responding. You know, I was thinking about it, so I was like, I've not seen that before. Yo, like, it is really funny, the team name is responding. And then it suddenly becomes part of the name, so that means that technically the name is Bruh, yes you are, yes you are, yes you are, yes you are. Like, yes, that's cool, I like that. So this team has Air, Bean, Soundboardy, the Lunchbox, and the 1x1 Lego piece. Yeah, this team looks significantly more dysfunctional, because, I mean, Air is kind of dismissive, Bean is kind of mean, so is, 1x1 Lego piece, a little bit meaner. So there's only like Soundboardy. Soundboardy kind of has to lock in here on getting this team to work. But yeah, this team looks like it looks like it's gonna be a little bit of a struggle. But we proceed to have the challenger, which is freeze tag with some freeze rays. So we end up doing pretty alright until eventually somebody ends up missing a laser, and it ends up missing everybody, right? Which means that it ends up flying over and it hits the sun, which means that the Earth has now become ice, which is not good. The co-host goes like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Yeah, which is not, it's not amazing. But it turns out that Fanball ends up kind of just sticking. Wait, who ends up sticking by? Yeah, I think Fanball, and fella is there. Wait, hold on. Wait, I'm confused at why Bruh is up for elimination. Not thinking about it. Hold on. Wait a minute. What was the reasoning given? The only person left on Bruh is Air. Is it? Is it? Didn't like somebody go to a bunker or something? I thought that Soundboardy went to a bunker. You know what I mean? Or did you? Oh, you got shot off screen. Oh yeah. Okay, so that means that with BFB and the fucking Fanball, you end up having 2 versus 1. So yeah, that's fair enough. It's a bit of an accidental victory, of course, but yeah, Team Bruh does lose. I'm expecting more losses to come for this team. Who gets out? I mean, the theoretical idea would be that Bean would get out, of course, because of course Bean, was mean and people don't like them. So we'll see if that ends up being true. But yeah, that is episode 2. It's a bit difficult to say, right? Because like, it's not that. It's like you see how like it's very BFDI original core writing, Like when I see the sun getting frozen by a freeze, right? Or a lot of these guys, they really do give off BFDI gang, especially nowadays, like in this specific time frame where we're kind of a bit more, we're seeing a bit more BFDI writing, with BFDIE, we're getting to like see it a bit more in neutral style, right? It's a bit more fresh in my memory, and this definitely feels like it's writing that harnesses a little bit of that core with it, which is interesting. However, it's like, is that a problem? No, it's not. I think that there's a sort of like thinking that there's a sort of thinking that goes on nowadays where it's like shows nowadays have to adhere to a higher standard to start, because it's like, well, shows already did that, right? So now shows have to be bigger, they have to be grander, they have to be large cast or whatever, right? And it's like, it's not true though. So, so personally, I approve of this. I think that, look, having a show that does, some relatively clean BFDI writing, right? With animation that focuses on just looking okay, right? Like at the end of the day, you know, that's what BFDI at its core did the best, right? BFDI at its core was made by an extremely limited set of creators, right? We only had Flash in a Dream. However, they locked in on the fundamentals, right? Mike and Kerry locked in on the fundamentals of making BFDI, and was just being like, hey, we don't know how to do much stuff, but the stuff that's gonna be in the episode has to look okay, right? And even though, of course, it's been a while, and the emphasis on okay and the standard on okay in the broader community has changed, I still believe that for a new creator, a new show, I still believe that this is fine. You know, I still believe that this is fine. You know, pick it up from here, and then, you know, eventually, after, you know, a series like this ends up getting made, especially considering it's relatively well set up, and the fact that it only has 10 characters, so it hopefully can end without taking 7 years. However, with the amount of time that's currently taken between episodes, you can't be too confident on that. But, like, I think that this is a solid stepping stone, and then hopefully, you know, future evolutions can come by. But anyways, it's time for the third episode, the most recent one, although it's still 6 months old, BFBL 3, which is titled Let's Get Picking. Okay, that is episode 3 of BFBL. Let's get to picking. So, we have ourselves certainly a couple of developments that take place in this episode. First of all, Flip-A-Clip logo is no more. It is no longer present. I'm not actually sure if this means that the Flip-A-Clip, like, you know, that this isn't on Flip-A-Clip. It's kind of hard to tell. Because, you know, usually the way that you can kind of half spot something like Flip-A-Clip is throughout the how hand drawn it is, right? However, this show has used like an overabundance of assets. Like this is asset style at its absolute core, right? Which means that it was always hard to tell. I think it might not be, because it ends up also looking from time to time a little bit more clear, but in general it manages to look itself pretty alright. So what ends up happening is Soundboardy ends up making a new machine, a splitter, okay, where you can split an object and it will split the main two things from it into two separate things, because they need to get peanut butter away from their chocolate, okay, so they don't like Snickers bars. They proceed to do that. However, it turns out that actually big problem. This ray accidentally turns the thing it's splitting into a person. Which, you know, I hate it when that happens. I hate it when I accidentally but then they proceed to shoot the ray on accident, because the fellas wanted to test out the zapper, and then they proceed to accidentally hit B.F.B that left the bunker. So B.F.B proceeds to split. I'm not gonna lie, it took me way too long to get the joke that Teapot proceeds to appear. That, oh, we split Teapot from B.F.B. That is so goofy. Like, that's a level of goofy that I wasn't even expecting. It's such like a low-res image of Teapot. It was like a widescreen picture that's like been chopped down. It's like been squished. But yeah, Teapot is here. Also, apparently one of the things that this ray tends to do is that it not only does that, it also means that you are evil. The person that it creates is evil now for some reason. For like, it's a requirement. You must be evil, which, I mean, a bit unfortunate. So that ends up being the situation. Then a Teapot keeps trying to murder B.F.B, and things are not looking great. But in the meantime, after having elimination, we have a cake and steak theme that's it's original in the sense that it's not it's originally sung. It's not original. It's just a cake and steak theme, right? There's no attempted variation of it. So that's I guess unfortunate, but either way, we end up having the challenge. You end up getting a singing Metal Sonic if you are safe. It turns out that the elimination is pretty obvious. Oh yeah, by the way, Air has earned eyelashes. Okay. Air has officially turned. That is such a goofy set. Air is officially female. I mean, every time that a character has eyelashes, immediately it's like, hold on, is this a general thing? Is this just like Air wanting to have eyelashes? Is this like girl equal eyelash thing? Right? Like, it's always difficult to spot because they're the only character that has them. So are they the only girl characters? I don't know. Characters like Periwinkle give off definite. I mean, just the high-pitched voice and the pink nature of it, right? But maybe not, right? So it's kind of difficult to tell from the get-go. But the eliminated contestant ends up being relatively obviously Bean. The additional animations also show off a little bit of the rough edges that you can tell are in these assets. You see, when you zoom into this asset and you see those little 1 pixel gaps, because this is a thing. Fun fact, bucket tools are bad. Because, why is a bucket tool bad? Because you see, it forms a vat. If you look at Bean's asset in the close-up, right, when they're mad or whatever, you'll see there's this 1 pixel gap where you can see through it. They're near from the outline to the inner shade. Why? Because when you do a bucket tool, it'll keep that one outline, right? Which is why you need to have a brush over it, right? That way you fill it up, and that way it's looking like a clean asset. It's not something that you think about until you look at it and think, well, why is it wrong? Well, it's because of that, right? It's because of the bucket tool. You gotta give it a quick nudge in wherever you make the asset. But either way, Bean is gone. They proceed to get yeeted. What even happened to them? I don't even remember. They get like zapped. Oh yeah, they get zapped by the Teapot Ray. Okay, yeah, that's true. I guess Teapot is now a permanently required member because they need to do that. But we proceed to have the challenge, which ends up being in Yo-Yo Land. Why does it end up being in Yo-Yo Land? Well, it ends up being in Yo-Yo Land because the challenge, according to the challenge list. What is the challenge? I'm curious. It's stay on K freestyle your baby. Okay, there's no spoiler. It'd be funny if it just spoilered the next challenge, or if it just had But dude, BFD, like, you see, those are good moments. Those are good moments. I've seen a couple of times where papers have been there where kind of neglected the possibility of putting a gag. I'm telling you, BFDI was the master of this. BFDI and visual gags on pieces of paper. It was the goal of doing that. And even in BFB, even nowadays, it still does that. So when I see a challenge idea that only has the challenges, you can write the most batshit insane stuff in there. You can write on the challenge ideas like burn down birthday land or whatever, right? Like, you can do anything, you can say anything, and it'd be funny. But no, the key is relatively on the low key. Okay, fine, but you can be a bit more bold sometimes. Oh yeah, Air loses the eyelashes sometimes. I don't know. Air has eyelashes whether they feel like it. Okay, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna judge Air? Are you gonna judge Air for doing that? But either way, challenge ends up being to pick Yo-Yo Berries. And then because of Teapot chasing BFB, we end up having that whole alliance sort of get mega distracted, right? So then Periwinkle and Jellybean are the only ones that need to do it. They both don't have arms, but they still do give it a relatively fair shot. I mean, they are outmatched 2v5 compared to Team Brut, which is being relatively chill. This is not that much of a teamwork challenge, right? This is kind of an individual challenge in the sense where, like, you don't need to go together or pick a Yorubase. Just go to a different place, pick the Yorubase you can, bring them back, right? Everybody has their own basket and everything, right? Which means that there's not really a big necessity to really have collaboration. And if you don't need collaboration, then I think Team Bro's okay, right? It's just that I'm a bit worried about, like, the collaborative efforts from that team, because that team seems to be a little bit distraught. But they don't have Bean now, so maybe they're going to be a little bit more chill now. It still depends. I still think that they're the weaker team. But yeah, either way, just to make things worse for Team BFB, they're not even allowed to really compete because we end up having Air just come in, sort of snatch with their teeth away the baskets and just fly away, which means that there's just not much there's not much riding on at the end of the day. So yeah, Team BFB is absolutely cooked. from the get-go. We end up having a couple of attempts. Thankfully, we do end up having B.F.B manage to survive, though, because they managed to, I guess, have T-Paw fall off a cliff, which they try to climb up, then they get dropped back down. But Team Bruh is safe, so Team B.F.B is up for elimination. So, who would get out here? Very interesting question, actually, because nobody in this team is really at fault. Notebook and friggin' Fanball end up neglecting the challenge, yes. However, they neglect the challenge for the sake of helping out a friendo, right? And they do manage to get it done together, right? B.F.B neglects the challenge, but there's really not much you can do about it. So then there's Periwinkle and Jellybean, both of which also basically don't have anything to do about it, right? Like, if you there really is one of the situations where there really is basically nothing that this team can do in this specific situation. It's the power of air. In challenges that are mobility, where mobility comes in handy, where like movement comes in handy, something like somebody like air is just so overpowered, where like you can tell there's nothing that this team can do about air. Air just isn't there, unless they like constantly keep a firm grip on the bat. There's just nothing you can do, right? So it's kind of a screwed up team. Jellybean seems to be the character which we're doing the least things with, so I'd probably eliminate them because it seems like we have the least ideas for Jellybean. However, we'll see, right? By the way, you don't think I noticed that there's that one song, one of the songs. It's Vikarai's song from the friggin' TBAOS. Right? That one song that played in the credits. You don't even think I forgot? I don't forget. Sometimes, most of the time I do, but not this time. And that is BFBL. A very focused series, which I like. It's a very focused series. And having done, there's a post-credit scene where the launch raid that T-Paw sends out ends up getting them into a void. There seems to be like a backpack type of figure. I'm not 100% sure what that is. It looks like a purse, a backpack, a weed that got fat. I don't really know, one of them. One of those three things. But like, anyways, yeah, the series ought to be nice. Because it's very focused, right? Which means that it definitely does sacrifice on originality, right? It has a setting that's, it takes the setting from BFDI. It takes a lot of writing metas from BFDI, right? And in general, it's trying to have a BFDI vibe, both in animation, in writing, in audio, in every category, right? It's trying to do like BFDI, which means that it's refusing to style itself, right? It's refusing to be bold and take its own art style. However, I think that's okay. Personally, a lot of people would say no, it's lazy, but personally I think it's okay. Personally, I think that, it can help you grow if you can just make something solidly right there. That's nice, right? And it can get stuff done. It absolutely can. So, I'm personally not against it, especially as a first object show. However, I mean, I'm definitely worried about a couple of things. I'm worried about the length between episodes, right? I mean, like, at the end of the day, I personally, okay, what would I say? I would probably say, right, that if we're taking BFDI to this level of literally, I think that we should probably aim for roughly a BFDI-esque release schedule, which means that, like, I think that roughly an episode per month-ish would be solid. However, in the span of over a year, we've got 3 episodes, which is way too slow. I mean, by this rate, the show would end in 2028, right? Which is a bit too... I mean, like, for a first object show, it's nice to, take it a little bit simpler. However, time taken has to be simpler as well. Because if you're making a show that's supposed to be simple, and then it takes you ages, then it's like, well... At that point, just then don't make something simple if it's not simple, right? So, that's a bit of the issue. So, very worried about the time between these episodes. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. However, in terms of just the literal concept, I think that's pretty solid. And hey, I'll look forward to more if it happens. I don't know what's going on with this show, but yeah. Next thing. next up, we're going to be taking a look at a little bit of a mysterious show. So, EM, alright, that is the title of the show. It is an episode 1A that released about a month ago, roughly when I was requested it. It is created by AnimationEpic, or Airy, who has 115 subscribers, and they only have 2 videos on their channel. They don't have pretty much anything on here, so it's a little bit mysterious. Like there's not much info to it. There's not really a playlist. There's basically nothing going on here. There's just the video. So we gotta watch it, and we gotta do what we gotta do to find out. EM1A started off, or I guess it's like a BFD ice cream. It's like it's like that. So we'll go with that. 7 minutes and a half long. Here we go. Okay, that is EM1A, which, if I'm not mistaken, stood for Everyday Mayhem. So this is really, really interesting. I'm not gonna lie. So, of course, the thing that stands out massively in this episode, and that, is its main claim to fame, is gonna be the animation, right? The animation quality of this show is quite high, I will admit. It manages to pull off many camera angles, many cool shots, many shots with resemblance or reminiscing higher quality object shows, right? Some of the bigger object shows, and it manages to stack itself up relatively consistently, having a lot of camera angles, and just in general having a lot of variety, and basically not being afraid of pulling lighting when it needs to, of just doing interesting things when it needs to, right? Which is excellent. The best way that I think I could describe the animation of the show is it's like a less refined Awesome Insanity. Does that make sense? Like, Awesome Insanity? I feel like Awesome Insanity is decent explanation. It's like a more baseline variant of like what Awesome Insanity would look like, right? I think it's what came to mind. It might be a wrong descriptor because of course I haven't watched Awesome Insanity in a while, but like it's what it reminded me of from its core. So yeah. Now, let's not get this 100% straight. It's not literally perfect animation, right? I personally believe that a couple of walk cycles are a little off, right? Like whenever somebody is walking away from the camera, it looks a bit awkward, right? Like when Egg walked into like the food store, for example, it looked a bit awkward. Or in lip syncing was a little weird because like the lip syncing sometimes definitely felt like it was very mildly sort of out of sync. It was like a couple frames early sometimes, right? Like when someone says it, right, and their mouth closes or whatever, then their mouth closes like before the word it gets said or something, right? Like it's not 100% there, but like in general the animation, like without making nitpicks, is very, very, very strong, right? And it's interesting because like it's rare to see a show that functions itself like this, because you can tell that this is a show that has its skill points very unevenly spread out, right? Like it's like you don't usually see shows with this animation quality end up with as simplistic of a concept as this does, right? Which is just there's an amethyst ball that finds these 10 contestants around this field, and proceeds to have them do a show to win infinite money, right? Or a wallet of infinite money, right? And like there's a bunch of contestants, they're all relatively goofy, right? But like in general, then they do challenges and split into 2 teams. Like it's really simplistic. Voice acting is not extraordinary, not anybody's fault, it's just my qualities, right? Certain microphones are looking a bit off. I'm thinking the Dollary, even Amethyst themselves, which is a bit concerning. but like there's a couple of characters here that don't sound too crisp, right? Which it's interesting because like you see how it's a little bit uneven, right? Like I like usually when a show this animation quality drop by, it has a little bit more of a nuanced plot, it has a little bit more of a nuanced VA. So this is a rare situation, it really is. Why is it a rare situation? I think the reason why this is a rare situation is because it's rare to see this type of animator make their own show. Like, you'll notice when you have these types of sort of like very high level but not highest level, right? Majority of the time you're just gonna see them like around. Like it's rare to see them be the star in terms of like it's their show, but like it's the type of person where it's like you'll see them around animating for like Purgatory or something, right? Like it's just rather than having their own show. So that's, I think, why it's a bit of a rare system here that is shown. But like it's not necessarily a problem. But like in general, I think it's just rather intriguing. It really is to watch. What else do I think? One of the things that I will point out, and probably one of the more I think the thing that makes this feel as basic, quote unquote, as it does, is that I'm not gonna lie, this environment might be in contention for the most boring environment I've ever seen. I'm not gonna lie. There is, like, you colored grass purple and made it do triangle, and in like 2 shots you can see a tree, and the trees look cool, but you can only see them like in 2 shots. Right? It's pretty much just like there's nothing to the environment. We are in a pile of nothing. There's not even like there's not a mountain in the background. There's not clouds. There's not water. What are there clouds? No, there's not clouds. There is nothing in the horizon. There is nothing in this environment. Which yeah, fair enough. I think it's why it really is quite uninteresting. It's unfortunate because if this show could pull off some cool backgrounds, I think that it would have the full trifecta, right? It would have solid it would have a solid character, solid animation, and solid design, right? However, it's missing that background design that really helps it out. But anyways, we end up having our characters. The characters are fun. They're relatively simplish personalities as well, but of course they only have a couple of minutes to play on with them, so that's perfectly fair. We end up having a one-way sign, which probably is the character that gets mentioned the most in this episode. They're kind of just goofy. They're like the silly character that does kind of dumb stuff. We have this credit card fella that is the evil one, quote unquote. They want mean. They're gonna cause havoc. We have Dollary and this like cheese block, which relatively fun. We have Matcha, which is kind of like that pillow character, constantly smiling but will murder you at all times. We end up having a couple of our characters. Don't get too much. Amethyst Ball is an interesting host, considering they're really calm. In the sense, not necessarily calm, they're very soft, right? They're very soft-spoken, which means that I'm not exactly sure how that will play out here, depending on the risk of the challenges, right? Like, if we're gonna, like, it feels like it's the type of host where I am a bit worried that, the contestants are going to be able to override the host. Like, I feel like this is not, I don't know if this is a host that can keep control of the show, right? Like, they would not have gotten people to join if it wasn't for the infinite money, right? So, it's problems are incoming, right? And either way, they end up forming 2 teams. So first team is titled Cough Cough Cough. It's got Eggy, Charger, One Way Sign, Matcha, and Water. This team is gonna it's gonna rely a lot on Match and One Way Sign, because they're the type of people that are just kind of do stuff, right? Like, they won't necessarily ask before they do, which means that if they have a good thing to do, they'll end up just doing it. And you see here where One Way Sign just forcibly volunteers because again, you can't really stop them from doing what they want to do, right? Then the other team ends up being called Team Chaos. So this is the Oreo, the Dollary, the Cheese Block, the Computer Fella, the Monitor, CRT, whatever you're called, and then the Credit Card. Of course, you have Credit Card is going to kind of dictate the play. We have a bit of we have some friendship. There's like, it's the power of friendship, and then there's a guy who's evil, right? This team doesn't get that much screen time. This is the team with less screen time out of the two of them. But I feel like this team is more well composed. It's more well rehearsed. So I do think that this team will probably perform better than the other team. And then we end up having our challenge setup, which it's just rock, paper, scissors, but in space, as far as I'm aware. I mean, you don't get to technically see Amethyst Ball explain it. However, it's looking like rock, paper, scissors in space. I'm going to be 100% honest. But you see, space looks cool as hell. Like, you see, here's the, yeah, there's the detail. You see, space looks cool. You know, this space background looks cool. This little shot that appears for 1 second, yeah, this looks cool. The regular environment, that's like friggin' triangular purples on a background with nothing on it. That is not interesting. You know, like, that's kind of the unfortunate. I need to, like, dude, it needs to do something to this background, I think, because like it looks like it's in more, because I think the fact that it's kind of an, like, the fantasy setting, you know, with the purple grass and everything, right? Like, at least with a show that's in grasslands, right? At least you can be like, oh, we're in the grass, we're in a hill or whatever, right? But I feel like the fact that this show is set in the purple purple grasslands, it really emphasizes how much this show feels like it's nowhere. Like, this show feels like it's being set to nowhere. You know, like, that's my personal problem with it. Oh yeah, this intro is super classic. What is this song called? I was trying to remember what it was called. What was it? It was the oh, I know what I'm thinking of. Oh my god. Oh, the intro song for this. It's so basically there's this one video that's like the Windows error, you know, and it's like a remix of it. It's the song that it's remixing. I don't know what it's called, but it's the song that video is remixed, because I knew I had heard it. But anyway, it's a very classic and it's very good, to be fair. It's just solid. But yeah. Hey, I'm looking forward to it. It's got animation down to pretty much a T. I still think that it could sort of give itself a little bit more of an identity, because it doesn't have much of one right now. And maybe if... I mean, I don't want to say level up the voice acting, but, you know, if it can, like, I guess try to work a bit more in the audio production environment to make it sound better, I think it'd be nice. And in general, you know, just try to get more of the outer components to line with the animation, which, to be fair to you, it's a nice animation quality. Next thing. Alright, next up we are going to the Fight for Whatever YouTube channel to go look at, well, Fight for Whatever. The Fight for Whatever YouTube channel has 669 subscribers. I am not sure who is the main person I should credit for creating Fight for Whatever, because it is just on the Fight for Whatever channel, so I don't know. But this is a series with 2 episodes so far. Despite the channel has a lot of episodes, has a lot of videos, sorry, but the show has 2 episodes. So we're gonna start off with episode 1, released 9 months ago, 1.9k views. It is titled A Fatal Fall. Here we go. Okay, that is episode 1 of Fight for Whatever. So, this is a bit different, but also not. So, the thing that's intriguing about this is actually a bit of like a comparison point that I gotta make it, right? So, because it's also just kind of like the sex shuttle like the day after II, right? It's a very BFDI-esque assets, mostly asset style show, right? That takes place and is rough around the edges, right? But what makes this look rougher? So I think what it boils down to, right, and why this episode I think ends up feeling a little rough, right, is that there is a complete absence of a wide shot. That is the big problem. You'll notice there is not a single shot where a character isn't taking up more than 50% of the screen. It's just it just doesn't exist, right? And that makes things feel a bit more rough because you are literally closer to the character, which first of all, by the way, is not very good because you're gonna be feeling, it's gonna be a bit claustrophobic in a way, right? Because it's like you're just too close. Like, let me take a step back here, cameraman. What are we doing, right? But not only are we close to the character, but when you're closer to the character, when you're closer to like when the asset is bigger, when the limbs are bigger and everything, that just means that I'm looking more directly at it, which means that I'm seeing the bigger flaws with it, right? And don't get me wrong, it's not bad to do it like this, right? However, doing it constantly like this is a little bit of an issue because there's too long where we got the one shot, right? Like there's only one type of shot. There's no camera angles pretty much, right? It is just a direct character, big on screen, right? Which ends up making it feel a bit rough. In terms of animation, it's okay. Sometimes limbs will be moving a little bit weirdly. However, like in general, it's like okay, but yeah, it just needs this shot. It desperately needs a bit of a wider shot. And when I notice this, it seems to just not be able to pull it off because there's situations where it clearly should but doesn't, right? Like in the challenge when there's the final 10 and it's telling us the final 10 from each team. Why is it not? Tell me, why is it not showing us a picture of the ice from afar with all of the 10 contestants? That way we can see the final 10. And instead it has to do this contrived way of doing it by telling us each one of them individually and having a list on the screen, right? Why doesn't it just show that and have it intuitively there where you can just see what the final 10 are? Well, because it cannot, for some reason, pull off a wide shot. I don't know why that is a decision that was made, but at some point during the makeover, there was a conscious decision that no, we cannot have... everything has to be a close-up. There cannot be any type of distancing, right? And yeah, I think that's what makes it feel awkward in terms of the animation. That's like the biggest contributor, because we're so close to the characters all of the time. Like there is literally, like there's basically only like one or two instances where you can even see a character's full like body without at least a cutoff at the legs, right? Like it's only with like Gumball or something. Which, by the way, yes, what is the actual topic of this episode? So we end up having some fellas there just kind of rummaging around and having Gumball be evil, and then they're bored, and then they just decide to host an object show. There's no prize for this object show. There's just nothing else they got to do there. They just don't have anything better to do, so they're just like, okay, fine, we'll host an object show, right? They had the interesting decision of the last person to get picked is the host, which is really interesting, isn't it? Like, I feel like that makes team pick, that adds a whole layer to team picking, by the way, alright? Like, it's like you want to have the host be somebody who's kind of biasing you, but then you can't necessarily control them, but you definitely don't want the host to be the worst guy, right? Because if it's just the worst guy, then that means that they're going to do the worst challenges, right? Which means that you actually want somebody who's kind of nice to be the host, so it's interesting. But either way, we end up having the challenge, which is just a balance beam but on a giant ice block, and then we end up having the teams, team freaking what team lost? Team Pentagons Aren't Scary lost, yes, because their team Pentagons Aren't Scary, and then the other team is titled like what was it? What was the title? It was titled something. It did the classic object show thing of the name not being good. The other one was titled Too Easy. Oh yeah, it's titled Too Easy. So yeah, so Too Easy managed to win the challenge, and the other one did it. I'm not gonna say, by the way, I don't just mean that the animation is poor in general. It's not. Like there's a certain ideas that I think the animation does is pretty interesting. I really liked the team picking and the way that the Gumball and the other fella's asset ended up sort of morphing into each other. That was cool. I like that quite a bit. And it is trying to do a couple of plot elements, having some characters here or there, with some direct personality. So you can see the heart is kind of like, not emo, but they're kind of like super, super low key. And then we have like this carpet fella that's not super into them. Then there's a couple of fellas coming in. There's not too much time to really get to understand a lot of characters because it's a 6-minute episode with it's like 20 characters that it has to introduce, and at the same and there's some very loud voices like Gumball, which means that the screen time is not evenly spread. However, we also have a flashlight that's apparently the inventor of grass. Yo, bro invented grass. But like in general, it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm interested to see if it picks itself up in episode 2, since it did take a couple of months to get it done, like 8 months to get it done. FFW, shortening, 2 is titled Lights Out. Okay, that is episode 2 of Fight for Whatever Lights Out. So, we've got some different stuff going on. Some things have been sort of cleaned up in certain aspects, and then also, more like borrowed in other aspects. So for example, environmentally speaking, what's going on? We are taking we decided that it is better to take a bit more from BFB. So now the backgrounds for this show are pretty much the same as just the backgrounds for BFB, which, the backgrounds for BFB are more detailed than just the grass that was being used for the original side. However, it is much more recognizably not this show's. So, it just kind of depends about how original it wants to be, right? Like, kind of like, what is it feeling like? And that's just kind of a creative decision. Because, like, if you want to have BFB backgrounds, you can have BFB backgrounds. I just know they're BFB backgrounds, right? So, we proceed to have the elimination. As the eliminations, we end up having that there are a couple of further away shots. I still believe that we just put the camera way too close to people way too often. However, I am still... However, it's improved at least sometimes now. There are shots a little bit further away where we can see a full character silhouette, right? And not just like majority of their body. And like sometimes even the full contestant shots for the elimination, which is rather nice because we really need it. We really need it. This show needs that like a lot, man. So... yeah, we end up having the eliminated contestant be Bottle Cap. Surprisingly enough, with 4 votes. They don't really do much of anything in that episode. But yeah, they just kind of get voted all based on vibes. They are one of the worst looking assets, I must admit. Out of the assets, that one, I don't even know. But I don't even know what it looks like. But a Bottle Cap is what it doesn't look like. So it's not great. They proceed to get to and turned inanimate. So... that is the punishment. You get to turn into the inanimate version of yourself if you get eliminated. So, fair enough. We have ourselves an intro, a bit of a renewed intro. It's a weird intro because everybody's falling from the sky. Everybody was falling from the sky at the beginning as well. That doesn't even get explained. They were just falling. They just felt like falling. Everybody collectively did skydiving and forgot about it. I don't know. But, yeah, the intro shows everybody falling from the sky in random order. The song, that one song that plays in like random stop music, in random Roblox game, like that song. It's playing at like 0.75 speed, so it's just a little bit too slow. But like it's got this like trombone or whatever. So it just does not sound good. I'm not gonna lie. Slowing down, chat. Slowing down music is not that good. Trust me. You gotta be a specific type of music for it to work, and this is not one of them. But yeah, from the way that they're looking here in the intro with the eye, in the way they look when they're saying it's elimination time, in the way that of course they zap the fella, and in the way of the explanation of the challenge, something's going on with Backpack. Something is absolutely going on with Backpack. They seem to be heading towards the path of evil. If you see, there really are. Like, are picking themselves up. The challenges are becoming rougher. They're becoming more aggressive in the way that they're acting. So the hosting role is getting to their head, because they looked relatively chill in episode 1, but no, it's absolutely getting to the head. Stuff's going here, which is a problem. They're speaking in reverse and everything. Like there is some host body powers, host devil that's going in. By the way, the challenge is your teams will be each on a separate box with a hidden light switch. So you must find the light switch and turn it on to be safe as a team. However, there are 3 players from each team who swap onto the other team and be the eradicators. So as the eradicators, their job is to stop them from doing just that. They have to murder everybody. They have to do what they can to stop them. So it turns out that actually the eradicators are really, really, really bad at their jobs. Like they pretty much do nothing the entire time. Like they really don't. They don't do anything. So like one of them goes for a kill. Like one of them gets a kill, and the other time a character just dies by like freaking Ace fella just dies on their own without even doing anything. But yeah, there's only one knife that got thrown, which means that the eradicators were just playing too slow at the end of the day, you know. But either way, eventually the heart manages to discover that there is the light switch there, so they proceed to run over. The smoke detector also ends up finding the light switch on the other teams. They're doing a mad dash, and it turns out that Plank manages to turn on the lights before the other team, which means that team 2 Easy is up for elimination. However, apparently Team 2 Easy is up for elimination, and the exterminators are safe. Alright, yeah, the exterminators have been given a safety token here and are invincible from this challenge, which is very unfortunate. If you could, I mean, it's very unfortunate for us because yeah, I would have picked one of them. I mean, they are useless. They did nothing. Ace was a disaster. Tape is out here telling. Hold on. Ace is out here telling the Tape is out here telling the playing card, like, yo, you're useless, and it's like, well, what are you doing to benefit the cause, for fuck's sake? There is nothing really going on in the team. One of them died, which, I mean, there's barely anything to say. I mean, like, because at least when it comes to finding the light switch, they found it with the same level of haste as the other team. You know, they lost out on the tiny details. So I can't really blame too much of them. But, like, I have to vote one of them out. Who would I vote out? Probably Hanger. Because Hanger didn't do anything. First of all, Hanger is a generic. It's a generic character because it's just a pin, right? They're like that. That's what they're doing. We're doing a pin voice and trying to sound like Pin. But then, of course, in terms of the performance on the challenge, I mean, Hanger would just say, "We are going to be safe," and then proceed to, "But don't worry." And it's like, well, you gotta solve the challenge. Well, like you can be like, "Oh, yo, we're fine," but you can't just every time somebody says, "Yo, should we do the challenge?" Like, "No, we got this." Like, what are you on? So yeah, Hanger's gotta go. Hanger has gotta go, bro. Apparently you can recommend a character in the comments, but how do you recommend a character in the comment? How do you, like, what do you, I'm sorry, I just don't know how that works. You you describe your OC. So my OC is like if a water bottle was evil, or whatever. I don't know, but, we proceed to have a bottle cap, apparently, after getting, you know, de-alived, ends up finishing in some mildly green void, and then some evil eldritch, and some evil, well, not even eldritch, it's just a shadow entity, but he's to go, ha ha ha, I'm not alone anymore, ha ha, I can have a playmate for the rest of eternity. Oh, just you wait, there's gonna be a couple more incoming. I mean, it's like one every episode, which seems to be every 8 months. There's gonna be one arriving every 8 months. You got yourself a deal set for life. But yeah, that is fine for whatever. What do I think? Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, R.I.P. I forgot about the honor there at the end of it. That is very sweet. But anyways. 5 for whatever. What I think of it, I think that it's okay. I see that it is trying some things here and there. It's trying to improve itself. I think it's got still definitely a ways to go. In terms of trying to make itself look alright. I think that, it's got some fundamental issues. Like, I don't know, like a lot of it just kind of boils down to the uses of ice, of it just kind of doesn't look that good. Like when characters walk, they're kind of walking in place. Backgrounds are from a different show. Everything's way too zoomed in, so you can see all the flaws in the asset, right? And it's that there's just these things, and they're just kind of being sort of drop it in from one and the other. Like the maximum quality of the videos is 720p for some reason as well, by the way. But like in general, there's stuff. There's stuff happening. In general, the quality of the assets as well is just dependent massively. Like a character like Hanger, you can really tell how like the shape of them is way more like roughed out than a character like Yo-Yo Berry. They're not even sure what's going on there, right? But like in general, it just kind of has to polish itself up a little bit better, polish up its act, because I mean, yeah, in terms of narrative, it's just starting out, so I can't really judge it too much. Like it's got 20 contestants, and with 5 minutes per episode, you can't really introduce that many people. So it's trying, but like we would need to get more episodes to really properly start to see those, so I currently can't really judge it too harshly on that aspect. I just think it needs to try to polish yourself up a little bit in the animation department, and then maybe you got something. But hey, polish up as much as you can. Don't polish up in the way where you can only make an episode in like every 10 months instead of but yeah. Next. Next up, we're going to be going over to obledoesstuff's channel. So obledoesstuff, an avid viewer of the channel and a YouTube creator with 1,500 subscribers. Well, but let's take a look at what object shows that they have done throughout history. Going over to 2 of them, starting off with the Cheesy Object Show, alright, which is a little mini-series of episodes about like 1 minute-ish long. It lately had the first episode of Season 2 release, however, first we've got to watch Season 1. Starting off with Episode 1, titled No Spoilers. Let's rummage through them. Alright, that is episode 1 of the Cheesy Object Show. So, our host, who's like a cheese-it, and it's like a cheese on a cheese-it. I don't know. But, either way, they proceed to host an object show with a bunch of contestants squared. That's fun. Peridot, Blueberry, Eraser Jr., Doorknob, Failed Exam, and like a noodle soup. So, we end up having this host. The challenge is to fetch the results for Teapot 13 because we're impatient. Interestingly enough, by the way, now that I think about it, technically there wouldn't be a very interesting way to cheat this challenge, because I mean, like, the host doesn't know the results of Teapot 13. So that means that you could just write the results on a piece of paper and give it and be like, hey, these are the results. Then if it happens, I mean, what matters is that you're safe right now, right? So cheating is absolutely encouraged in this idea. I mean, it's not like anybody has a piece of paper anyways. We're in a green gradient void that's like Catchup background in an alternate timeline. However, like, it's definitely something. The contestants... everybody's absolutely distraught by the paper that says that 8-Ball debuts. 8-Ball did not debut. But yeah, who's getting out? I don't know. Probably somebody that didn't do anything. I think out of these, the worst asset is probably Peridot, so I'd maybe vote them out to leave. However, I don't really have a basis to base it on. But overall, interesting little episode. It's got some fun attitude to it. Episode 2, better is better than no, whatever that means. Okay, that is episode 2. So, the eliminated contestant, Doorknob. Why? I don't know. We just felt like it. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict it. There's nothing to really base the eliminations off of, when there's so little time. The challenge is to hit the ball, the baseball, with the bat, and then it lands in the bucket, which IRL would be really hard to do because it would need to be to have like some upwards trajectory because otherwise it would drop. It was have the bucket tip over because of the speed, so it would be rather bad. But either way, Squared manages to do it pretty nice. When I saw the ball slowly head to the right, I'm not gonna lie, I was 92% sure that the ball was just about to continue. It was just gonna continue off screen, but unfortunately, no. What happened is what usually would happen, which is the first person that does a challenge automatically wins the challenge because there's not enough time in the episode to do much else. Who's getting that? I don't really know. However, Eraser Jr. did say that they were not on the edge of their seats, so let's say that Eraser Jr. gets eliminated here. I'm not getting these right. Like, these are just vibes and stuff. Okay. Episode 3, this episode has a recommended character. OMG. Okay. Okay, that is episode 3 of the cheesy object show. So, I get it wrong. There's actually a tie between Blueberry and the failed exam. Failed exam manages to win the tiebreaker and therefore is safe. Challenge, turn yourself rainbow. And I'm not gonna lie, the title was not lying. There was a recommended character, a singular one. Let's go. Oh, that's so goofy. But either way, we end up having a failed exam, dunked them, well, not rainbow gradient, it's actually a chrome gradient. However, they managed to just snap their fingers and then they turn rainbow, so fair enough. So there it is. I don't know why Blueberry is sitting on top of Queso, the YouTube channel. However, we're going for it, For a moment, I thought that the rainbow cheese was the recommended character, but no, it just wasn't. Okay, how do I math out who's getting eliminated? I need to find a tactic. Okay, so Cookie Dough hasn't had a scene in 2 episodes, so they did a bunch of stuff early on, but now they don't anymore. So let's say that Cookie Dough gets eliminated. Let's see if this logic makes sense. Episode 4, the Corndog Effect. Alright, that is a TCOS 4, and 4 is the number of votes that every episode has gotten so far, and the host is starting to get pretty upset about it, and Squared ends up getting eliminated, so no, there's no logic, but there's no logic that I managed to spot behind who the 4 voters are voting. I was getting it wrong. Anyways, challenge, eating dog food. Eraser Jr. might as well be a dog, so they proceed, so they don't mind. We end up having Cookie Dough cook it, and then they're fine, and then finally Peridot manages to eventually panic it and eat it. Failed exam never even seemed to really have it, so they have been eliminated and are in 4th place, except they're not in 4th place, they're in 5th place, because whoever debuts is going to be in 4th place. Yes, because we have a debut right here. I think, it's like 1 episode a bit late. Everybody here is pretty alright, I'm not gonna lie, although I would personally probably get Sivey to join, because they're the most clearly easily gag, right? Because, like, when you have, not this much screen time to work with, you're gonna want to have characters that are immediately where the gag is immediate, right? And with a character like Sivey, just their height, right? And like sharpness to it, it's a very like extreme character design. That means that it's gonna allow for some easy, quick jokes, right? About like, haha, I'm tall, haha, I'm sharp, right? Any of that stuff, right? Because those jokes can be made quickly without needing to really establish much of a personality for a character, which you can't really do when you only have about 1 minute to go. So that's what I'm thinking about when I think about these debuts. So I think Sivey should probably join. Honorable mention, maybe Pie Charty could be a little bit fun. But otherwise, I don't really know. And Clip Champ, I think that's just the logo, so I don't think that's too interesting. Maybe Nightcap. No, but Nightcap is just the type of character just gonna sleep the entire time. So that's not exactly gonna look too interesting. But yeah, let's hope Sivey joins, chat. I don't know what the voters are voting and voting, but then we're going to have to find out. In episode 5, is it blue? Alright, that is episode 5. So, the debut, Saibi doesn't join, unfortunate. However, Pie Charty does. So, you know what? Fair enough. We'll take it. We'll be taking those. And then we have our final 4 challenge. Survive the crazy asteroid in the sky. The freaking cookie dough ends up getting their arm back, because remember, they lost their arm trying to eat the dog food. I don't know how that happened, but we'll just pretend that makes sense. You know what? We ends up that Pie Chart survives, because of course they do, right? They're the debutant. They always win the first challenge. And the other fellas are up for elimination. I will say I did find it cute how Eraser Jr. ends up being on the cookie dough. Like, cookie dough kind of helps him out. So I'm going to keep those 2 safe, and let's say that Peridot gets eliminated here. I haven't gotten any right, correct? So that means that Peridot will get 0 votes. Are you ready for this? This is about to be a great. This is about to be the greatest moment in history, by the way. Like we're gonna end up having, like, trust me, 0 votes. I don't know. Has anybody I predicted gotten a vote? I don't think anybody I predicted so far has gotten any votes the time I predicted. It's hilarious. So alright, let's see if I'm doing any of that. Episode 6 is titled "I'll Paint the Knob Green." Okay, good luck on that. Okay, 6th episode, we end up having 4 votes. Shout out to the 4 people. I wonder if these are different 4 people, or just the same 4 people that are very dedicated to voting on the cheesy object show. These are the real questions. But either way, yes, indeed, I'm correct. Peridot ends up being safe. I don't think Peridot has ever gotten a vote. I don't know. These 4 viewers, they're biased, okay? They're biased, all right? These 4 people, it's almost like if his voting is inherently biased. Yeah, they're biased, all right? They're Peridot fans. And it turns out that there's a tie between 2, well, it got presumably a 2-all tie, between, Cookie Dough and Eraser Jr. We end up spinning a wheel, which with no rigging at all done to it, ends up declaring that Cookie Dough is safe, and Eraser Jr. ends up saying bye. So then the next challenge is paint an eliminated contestant. So they will proceed to do that. Peridot ends up painting the doorknob, but while the doorknob was doing a monologue, we named the Pie Charty, who wasn't even in this episode, and Cookie Dough are up for elimination. The next episode is the finale, though, so, well, is it? It should be the finale. So yeah, who's gonna get eliminated? Well, we've been told very directly that it's the last chance we have to vote, so that means that if it's the last chance we have to make a debutant not win, then Pie Charty should get eliminated, but we'll see what the 4 people are thinking, what the 4 musketeers, we need to see, what are the 4 musketeers of the cheesy object show voting thinking today, we gotta find out in episode 7, which isn't the finale, or is it? It's the finale in my heart. It's titled BFB equals Battle for Bob. Remember, Bob's the prize. Let's go. Alright, well, the viewers did not, the 4 viewers, which is now 5 viewers minimum. I don't know how many votes it took for to eliminate, freaking freaking Cookie Dough, but it was more than 2, which means that there's more than 4 votes in total. So this means that we didn't take the opportunity to restrict the rule set, which means that Pie Charty doesn't need to take the full advantage in the finale and manages to sit there, which is, what they've been trained to do. As we saw in their debut video, they could just spin around, and they win. Good stuff there, Pie Charty. I do like the Pie Charty design, I will say. I like the way that it's shadowed in the outline, so I think it's a relatively clean, as far as circular characters go. I think it's pretty solid. Bob died, apparently, which is bad, but they get a meal from McDonald's, and also managed to sue Cheese on the Cheez-It, to win. So that means that Pie Charty wins. Good job. Hey, it's not very often you get to see a debutant winning, but breaking the curve right here, breaking the line a little bit, having something a little bit more rare. So with that's some solid stuff. All right. So yeah. However, there's an 8th episode. The 8th episode is titled The Demon Blob is Awakened. It's a 1:35 in length, so it's not the longest episode. It's actually episode 4. It's not the longest episode. It is the final episode in theory. No idea what it is. Let's find out. Well, yeah, I was fooled, I guess, but, like, good job. It was, like, fair enough, but also, how would I realistically ever clock that it be a joke, right? Because it's on the playlist, and it's not April Fool's, and they get renamed to being April Fool's. The thumbnail is serious, right? So there's nothing in this upload that could tell me that it is an April Fool's upload. So I am for taking zero. Alright, you get me, zero responsibility for getting fooled by this. It's on the playlist despite being a clearly joke. So, yeah. You know what's actually really funny? This has more views than 6 of the episodes. And you know what? It has more views than 5 of the episodes. And you know what? For tricking me, I'm gonna say that's deserved, okay? That's deserved. This video has more views than the actual views. I'm saying that's deserved. You fooled me into introducing a video that's like 1 minute of freaking theory exam holding a lollipop, and you do this. You got me. Well, you know what? I'm telling you deserve. This is the first dislike on the Eternal, the second channel. Alright, there we go. Go check your analytics. It'll be there. Alright. I'm joking, but it will be there. For the sake of humor. But there we go. Let's go over into the episode released 3 days ago, which is the first episode of maybe season 2, which is titled, well, the season is TCOSA, so I'm presuming it means again, because it usually does. Episode 1 is titled, Please Speed, I Need This. Alright, that is TCOSA, which indeed is the Cheesy Object Show again. So, Pie Charty goes over to a still homeless grilled cheese, and proceeds to go like, yo, my bad, gang. I got some more contestants for you. So we end up having it. It's a relatively cool, I guess, intro. A new contestants involved, a mix of new and old. We got Syfy, who didn't join. I got the Pistachio fella, who didn't join. But then there's Blueberry and Squared, who didn't join. And then the Doorknob, who was in the competition. So there's 2 from the debut. There's 3 from the old season, and there's 3 new fellas. Yeah, I think that's a good balance. Challenges to murder another contestant, and Syfy murders the Pistachio. I'm telling you, bro, Syfy is perfect for this. Syfy is the perfectly built contestant for this type of show, because they just do stuff quickly. They don't even get to talk. Anytime they have screen time, they have to do an action because they don't have a mouth, right? Like, they're just a character tailor built for this type of just getting stuff done. They can do slicing quickly. They're tall, so they can do any height-based challenges, right? And like, they don't talk, so they're not gonna fluff it, right? They're a contestant that just locks in, and for this type of quick show, this is what we need, right? So yeah, a couple of things have changed, of course, in the animation. The main different thing is that the animations, the mouth lip syncing ends up doing the mouth loop instead of the fully open mouth. Personal opinion, some people might disagree. I personally am of the big belief that the mouth looping is worse than just having an open mouth, because at least if you have an open mouth, right, then it's just open when somebody's talking. You can fill in the details, like, okay, this is talking and this is not talking. However, when it's doing the opening and closing, it's like, I understand that it's supposed to still just represent talking. However, it's not the correct mouth movement, right? Because at least when there's no mouth movement, you can say that it's not there. But there is a mouth movement here, but it's the mouth movement that's going nom nom, right? And it's like, what the hell? So in my personal opinion, I don't think it's good. I think it's worse. However, that's my opinion. Anyways, we end up having some fellas who's getting eliminated here. Probably, I mean, this like messaging app fella, they glow, which is kind of interesting, but I think they said no line, so I think they gotta go, right? So yeah, grilled cheese. I like grilled cheese, so you know I'll go with it. All right, it's grilled cheese. It's grilled cheese. So yeah, it was relatively solid. What do I think of the cheesy object show? I mean, it's fast, it's quick, it's kind of fun, it's kind of mindless in a way. And there'd be very little reason to kind of get mad at it, quote unquote. You know, it's doing its thing. And yeah, okay. The other show that they made, which they requested me to watch, has one episode released 1 year ago, over a year ago. It is titled Battle for Chronos. I believe this is the main show that they made. I don't really know. Because that, well, they not saying they didn't make it, but I don't know if they're still making it. But anyways, let's go to Battle for Chronos 1. Let's jump it. Alright, episode 1 of Battle for Chronos. We have ourselves a disclaimer at the beginning saying that apparently it will have not a consistent art style, which is interesting considering, I mean, like, it does, though. I mean, not like I mean, it's not like literally the same, I guess, but like, it's very similar. Like, it's enough of a similarity to where I would debate that it's not worth the disclaimer. But at least, you know what, fair enough, I guess, on the preemptive disclaimer. So, we have ourselves, City coming in as a host, with their batch of contestants. So what contestants do we have? We have, JK, who that are the letters J and K. We have a speech bubble that speaks in, of course, detecting the speech bubble. Boosty, that's like an up arrow. Then we got Dashy, that's a geometry dash. Now what does that mean? They're a geometry dash icon, however, they seem to be capable of transforming into maybe any of the game modes. I mean, we only see them transform into a ball here, however, it does give them for an interesting opportunity. They don't need to use a portal, they don't need to use a game mode portal like you do in GD to switch game mode. They just seem to be able to do it on the fly. So that's a very interesting ability, it makes them very strong. You got Slushy here, which is Slushy. You got search results that can seemingly search using themselves, so they have the power of a search engine, and I guess they're constantly online. We have Dynamite. You know what that is. We have a crab, like a crab leg, and then we have obledoesstuff themselves, the creator of the series. Is here as one of the contestants, and also Galaxy, who's up there somewhere. So those are the contestants, and we end up having ourselves a competition. So what are our two teams? So we have the worst team ever. So the worst team ever is comprised of Dynamite, Smoothie, JK, Speech Bubble, and Galaxy. This is because Dynamite was the last one picked and was forced to be on them, and nobody likes Dynamite. Why does nobody like Dynamite? Not exactly sure, but I guess they're like mean. I mean, they're not really. They're not like that mean. I mean, so we haven't showcased their meanness yet. Any time they've been mad is relatively fair, right? So I'm not very sure what exactly is going on here. This team is looking not great. This team is looking like it's gonna show, to be honest, because they don't have any leading figure. Two of the characters don't seem like to have much mobility. The other ones seem to kind of be goofing around, and Dynamite, they won't get hurt. This team is distracted. I don't know if this team is gonna manage to do too much. And the other team is kind of fun and excitement because Dashy named it, and that's what they say in blast processing. So this is Dashy, Boosty, Oble, search results, and crab legs. This team is alright. There isn't that much of a leading figure in this team. However, there's a lot of combined, just kind of everybody here's fine, right? So if they can get together on a plan, which none of them really seem like they would inherently disagree too much, I think that the team could get it done. So yeah, I do think that that team is better, better put together. Challenge is to literally just murder the other team. There's not much to it. And in fact, that is what proceeds to happen. Yes, we proceed to have a lot of doing the murders taking place. So let's actually discuss here some of the technical details. So some of the technical details. The show is set in like this orangey land. This is, I guess, the thing that changes the most from RSL to RSL. It's kind of just how the background looks. Sometimes it's a bit more rounded. Sometimes it's a bit more rugged. However, in general, again, it doesn't change that much. Like if it changed, because there's a degree where it changes too much, right? Like it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yo, I mean, even that word, like if it really was that different, right? That warning would not save you. You know, just being like, don't expect me to have done the thing consistently. It doesn't mean that I still wouldn't tell you should do the thing consistently, right? Thankfully, in this case, it's not a problem. However, just saying that warning doesn't like save you or anything. You know, maps are maps for a reason, and objects are objects for a different reason, right? But yeah, in terms of writing, it's relatively chill. It's a simple little episode. You know, there's not like too many. I mean, there's like 10 contestants in the show, right? So it's relatively small. You know, it's a small cast. It's being set in inherently small grounds because our host can't move, right? That's kind of the thing about our host. They can't move because they're the city, which means that every challenge has to take place entirely within like this land. So there's not going to be too much variance in that category, which means that everything can kind of be locked in here. So the environments, at least there's going to be a lot of opportunities to reuse them, right? So that would be relatively interesting. In terms of the voice acting, a couple are fine. A couple of the microphones definitely leave a little bit to be desired. I'm thinking probably for a character like Boosty, I think it's kind of rough. For a character like Galaxy, I think it's kind of rough. But in general, it ends up doing some interesting things. The animation style, it feels very flip-a-clip. It gives off a lot of flip-a-clip hand-drawnness to it. But in general, you can see what's happening. It does its job. And yeah, the characters proceed to do the murdering from each other. By the way, shout out! Oh yeah, halfway through, every once in a while, we end up getting a freaking status update from the host showing with UI showing who's remaining on each team. This is huge. This is what we need. This is good. UI that's telling you what the current status of the challenge. No fucking show does this, and I don't know why. This is goated. Yes, it's simple, but it's effective. You know, it helps out. It makes digesting the episode so much easier. So I will give massive praise to having done that. Galaxy's wondering, yo, how the hell do I die? And GD's like, oh, watch this. So they turn into a ball and they flip, which changes their gravity, which means that they launch head first towards the Galaxy, which murders the Galaxy. Okay, let's say sure. However, there is no way that wouldn't just murder GD as well. Just saying, right? Like, they didn't land, like, not only first Galaxy apparently exploded, which, I mean, look, we need to, like, let's form the implication that if the galaxy is dead, that doesn't mean that the galaxy is dead. Right? In the sense of, like, let's form the implication that just because the galaxy is dead doesn't mean that there just isn't a galaxy for that meantime, because that wouldn't exactly work, right? So, let's say that that's not true. But then, like, either way, GD didn't land on anything, which means that they should have just kept going. Right, so they should have died. Absolutely, Dashi should have died there. There's no way that there would easily be alive, and that's this oversight. JK proceeds to get themselves stuck in glue. Obo and Slushy end up having a battle. Slushy loses it, but Obo manages to just kind of drink out of the slushy and proceeds to die. So yep, somehow that happened. JK proceeds to get absolutely destroyed by Dashi. There's not much AK could really do about it. Then we managed to have a Slushy coming in as the final remaining member of their team. They managed to kick Dashi all the way to the other side of the world where there's a PSP. That was a fan of a skyscraper. Now they get very mad, so Dashi dies there. So then the search results against the Slushy. Search results ends up buying a lighter, which gets delivered very quickly. I mean, that is a powerful tool if you consider just how quickly it's getting made. And overall, they managed to get rid of Slushy. So everybody else is up for elimination. Who's getting out here? I mean, Message is probably shit. They're not voice acted, so I guess there's bias against that, so they don't necessarily have a voice. They are exceptionally mean to Dynamite, not even allowing them to be on their team, not even allowing the props with them being on their team. They're useless for the challenge because they're entirely not present, and they have the least screen time, so they theoretically should get out. However, I don't know if you'll ever see that because, like, we just this episode was released in August of 2024. Do you know how long ago August of 2024 was? I don't know if this show's ever happened at this point. But hey, if it is, that's cool. I'm ready for it. If not, then I guess we'll see. We end up having everybody get recovered off of a mysterious scribble. That's kind of interesting. But yeah. I'll be interested to see if there's more battle for Chronos, but is there? Let's be for real. But yeah. Don't know if there's a next thing. Probably should be. Let's go. Next up, we are going to watch another one of Randomness' shows. Yes, so Randomness YTOG is a creator, which we covered before with BFB and Battle for Milkshake. However, one of the ancient requests is to take a look at Battle for $5.99 or BF599. So let's see. It's presumably Battle for $5.99. It has had 30 episodes historically released, and it starts off with the first one, obviously, which released 6 months ago. It is titled, "What did you say his mother was again?" Let's go. Okay, that is Battle for $5.99. Now, it might sound goofy, however, if you think about it, it is one of the most realistic prizes in object show history. We have ourselves our host, who is, I guess, Randomness, a painting of a picture of Randomness. Then we have our 8 contestants. So our all-star lineup of castmates is Vinesauce, Trollface, Cursor, Among Us crewmate, or Imposter, one of the two, Epic Face, Droplet, a Speaky Spelly thing, that's the official name, and then a program, which I forgot the name of. That is the show. The challenge is to get a chair. You know, hey, this is the episode with the II Remaster episode with Bo, so I think, chairs are in order in this episode. So, fair enough. We end up having some fellas trying to figure out how to get a chair. We end up having one swear word in this episode, which is truly saddening. I think, not a lot, like, it'd be something I criticize usually, but I think, like, with the silliness of these shows, I kind of prefer to actually lean into it. I gotta say, with these Randomness shows, I think that one of the funniest parts to me about them is always that, like, it looks like every line is just barely making it over the line. Like, it looks like we're trying to hold in a laugh at the end of every single line. Every time somebody says a thing, they end it off with a cutoff where you just know there was a laugh, like, immediately after. It's always fun. But yeah, we proceed to have Cursor arrive because they were eating whatever the hell that is, and the challenge to get a chair, and they just happen to have one in their inventory, so they win the challenge, and everybody else is up for elimination. Who's getting eliminated? I don't know. Trollface, maybe, because they said it was a nerd, maybe. I don't know. So we're gonna let's go with episode 2 of the $5.99 extravaganza, which is titled "Viney Dies and Doesn't Come Back." No. Alright, that is episode 2 of BF599. So, we have ourselves the elimination, of course. By the way, what is this elimination song? I mean, it's an elimination time song, like, for sure. I don't know what it's from, but that's kind of interesting. We end up having the eliminated contestant be Among Us because they decided to quit the show. Why did they decide to quit the show? I don't know. They were like, yo, this show is dangerous because the challenges are dangerous. I'm going to be 100% for you. This might, at least, okay. By the time that Among Us quit, alright, this was possibly, debatably, the least dangerous show I'd ever seen. The challenge was to buy a chair, and the price is $5.99. You can't even buy a chair for that price. You have to. It's interesting, but I guess they predicted the future because the challenge ended up being to eat the one chip challenge without dying. By the way, have a renewed intro. By the way, which I'm gonna say pretty cool. A pretty cool intro. I actually approve of this intro quite a bit. I like it because a lot of the time, when you have these types of songs, making up intros, a lot of the time it's just there as background. However, having the characters properly, like, I guess, act out with the song, like you can tell how, like, the ooh, right, that's kind of like spoken out by the characters that appear for that section. I kind of like it. It gives it a vibe that, like, the vocals aren't just of a song, but it's also like part of the intro, which I think is rather nice. A couple of intros do this. I'm not saying this is the only one, but I like it for that reason, right? But yeah, everybody eats it and everybody fucking dies, pretty much. I'm not gonna lie. Nobody manages to survive. They burn on fire in any different ways. But Raindrop manages to do it. So, probably because, they're water, so I guess they already have a protection mechanism. So, they proceeded to manage to do it. And I guess Speaky Spelly couldn't eat it at all. I think they were alive, but I just don't think that they could have done much about it. So, they're safe, and everybody has up for elimination. Who's getting out? I don't know. I don't exactly think that exactly did much to save their reputation, so I would still probably eliminate him. I would still go, no, it's your time to go. Nobody else really did anything, in my opinion, that would make themselves any more eliminatable than ourselves did, though. But they are interacting with the circle. They are interacting with that boundary circle, maybe. And also it is true, the title is Viney dies and doesn't come back. So if the idea is that they don't come back, then you want to eliminate them because they're not coming back. I don't know. But I'd personally still vote out Trolly, or I think their official name is Trollolol. So yeah, I'd still vote them out, but I don't know. We're gonna have to see. Episode 3 of a battle for $5.99. It's titled Take the Plunge. Bit late for that, isn't it? Let's go. Okay, that is episode 3 of a battle for $5.99. So, we start off here with Viney and Raindrop being like, yo, guys, what if we make a show? Which they decide to do that. I do like the concept of like, it'd be funny if there was just like an Inception on the Inception where like the show just like the person who wins eventually hosts their show, and it's like slowly less money, so like they'll keep like a $1 cut, so then the next season they start a battle for $4.99. If this ever gets to that point, I hope that happens. That'd be really funny. But we end up having the elimination time after random painting thing ends up destroying the universe. So 10 votes, and the eliminated contestant ends up being Trollolol, who indeed does did not redeem themselves from last time, so they get eviscerated. Then we have ourselves a new intro. So you see, this intro is what I mean. This is what I mean when I was talking about the last intro, right? So, like, that last intro and the episode 2 intro, why it feels more dynamic? Because there's a more direct interaction between the music and the the intro rather than just BPM, right? So like for example, the vocals for Rockefeller Street Nightcore end up not mattering here because like no content like they don't matter, you know. Which is unfortunate when, like, for example, in the last episode 2 intro, the vocals of the track did matter, which means that it made it for a more fluid intro, right? Which is why, in my opinion, if you're making an intro with a show and you're using a song with vocals, which by the way, realistically, you probably just shouldn't do. But like, if you are doing that, you try to make the vocals relevant, because at the end of the day, when most sung music, they are they're supposed to be the main part of the music. So, you know, just kind of keep that in mind. You know, these are like the loudest part of music. They're the most clearly defined part, instrument of the music is vocals. Anyways, we end up having, first a nuclear bomb explodes and everybody dies. But then the challenge ends up being to jump off a 20-foot cliff into this water. Otherwise, you will fall into the lava. So, we proceed to have the fellas do it. Epic Face ends up being like, yo, well, check this out. I'm pretty good at this. They miss. Just straight up, they just kind of miss. Then we end up having Viney ends up pushing Speaky in. And then they fall themselves with the push. They end up being safe though, and Speaky's talky thing ends up not being safe. Although, if you think about it, they're fucked either way, because they either land in water or get electrocuted, or they land in lava and die. So, they die in both of the outcomes here. So it was just not a challenge for this fella. You gotta admit, it was just not it. You know, there's just not too much you can do sometimes. We end up having Droplet and I forgot what your name was again. I'm really sorry. But anyways, they proceed to be safe. Nerd emoji. And the other fella, Droplet, ends up dying, which means that everybody else is up for elimination. Cursor just doesn't really try. They kind of get forgotten about. They're looking at it from above. I mean, like, they technically can't jump, but they could have flown down to the water, right? So I'm not actually, like, you know, they could have put up a little bit of an effort, but they kind of ended up being a spectator for so long. They ended up being up for elimination for spectating, right? So, yeah. They could very realistically get eliminated for that. I mean, that, like, there's just such a non-attempt, you know? Like, there's just such a lack of trying that gets done it. Like, it's not like they try, like, it's not like they asked and they said flying contests are not allowed. It's not like they flew down and it didn't work. They just stayed up there doing nothing, right? So, like, there's just such a lack of energy that gets put in. You know, there's such a lack of enthusiasm. There wasn't even an attempt at getting the challenge to work, right? They were just standing there. So I think that Cursor probably going or at least that's what I would vote for. I could also definitely see Epic going, because in the same way that Chorolololol didn't redeem themselves, Epic Face absolutely didn't redeem themselves in this episode either, as the second most voted. So I don't really know, but personally I'd say Cursor's out, and I'm gonna be a little bit bold and say that Cursor gets out, even though I think a lot of people will. I'm not confident, but I want to predict it anyways, just in case. That is a battle for $5 and 99 cents. It's definitely a show. It's rather fun, as most randomness shows tend to be, right? Like, oh yeah. I forgot the gag of, did you spot the gorilla? No, I did not spot the gorilla, by the way. I don't know where the gorilla is. Is there a gorilla? It'd be fun if there was. But yeah, as it goes with most randomness shows, there's shows that take themselves not seriously in any capacity, but they end up being fun little times that are always, you know, pretty charming to watch. There's very little negative about them, despite, you know, their lack of complexity. So, you know, it's all fun and games here at the Randomness YTOG exclamation mark YouTube channel. So yeah, that's cool. I don't know. Again, I don't know if there's a next thing, but if there is, we'll go to it. Alright, and that is all for this object catch. But gonna be honest, I forgot to record this outro earlier. However, yeah, today was a little bit of an interesting day. I decided that today I was gonna try to just cover as many of the quick requests that are super old as I could. I used to go in order, however I had to skip a couple of them because I went in order to have to review another massive series, and then everything else is already super old and I'm doing, so I decided to try to minimize the damage, okay? That's like the best way that I could describe what this episode was. There's still a lot of damage. We're still absolutely fucked when it comes to being anywhere near caught up with a request. So at this point, I'm just gonna be 100% honest, like, I don't even recommend you request right now because you're just not gonna get to it. Like, I'll get to it eventually, you know, like, there's a guarantee of that. There just isn't a guarantee of it happening anytime soon. So I guess either get them in so that I can review them in like fucking April, or not, because at this point it's like, dude, I am bad right now. Like, this is not good, especially because, you know, I'm skipping days, everything, because of motivation, all that stuff, right? So it's kind of be complicated. And then of course I'm already behind on the other thing. There's the other episode 100 is coming up, and all this other stuff, and like, if I'm gonna get busy in a couple of days. Like, it's like all this shit is just culminating together, and it's gonna be a problem. I'm not gonna lie, problems are gonna be had. However, you know what they say, there's future me's problems. So for now, we're all caught up with the shows that we watched today. See you next time.